Hello, and welcome to another episode of Stitching Consciousness. We are here today with a young couple who have started their own upcycling brand, something that I'm very interested in, as you may know if you have been listening to my episodes in the past few months. We have Caitlin, uh, Caylin and Mitchell. I am not very good at pronouncing their names, so I might get it wrong. Apologies in advance.
That's okay.
They have a brand called Yvonne and Mitchel, Jared, and they basically turn the vintage clothing into new clothes. And basically, I will ask them to now introduce their brand and what they do and how they came across it. They have a very interesting story.
Thank you.
So,
Yes, I'm Cailin.
welcome on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I'm Cailin Yvonne, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Yvonne and Mitchel.
And I am Jared Mitchell Armstrong, and I am also a co-founder and the designer for the brand.
Yeah, and essentially, as you said, Yvonne and Mitchel is an upcycled fashion brand that started back in 2016. So 6 years ago now. We're actually coming up on our 6-year anniversary next month, I believe, is October. And when Yvonne and Mitchel first started, we were in college, and it was probably about a year into us dating. We had a lot of shared interests, obviously, but specifically with fashion and wanting to start a career in fashion. But also something that we love to do and still love to do was thrift together. And so we decided to start an online resale business, and we just did it solely on Instagram for the first 3-ish years. So we were just reselling high quality vintage. And then during that time, Jared would kind of source different pieces and set them aside because he was in the process of teaching himself how to sew, and he would kind of play around with them. And he started off by simply like cropping, maybe fixing some holes. And then over the years, as his sewing skills grew, he eventually started reworking pieces. And I think it was 2020 where we made the decision to fully transition from selling vintage to selling Jared's upcycled designs. And so ever since then, we've been a solely upcycled clothing business. And yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. There's a lot to unpack over here.
Yeah.
Um, so, firstly, for people who might not know, and who might not be not have much technical knowledge, could you briefly explain what upcycling business is and what upcycling basically is? How is it different from recycling?
Yeah. So upcycling, the official definition is to take discarded materials or items and repurpose them into products that are of higher quality and higher value. So the difference between upcycling and recycling, um, with recycling, it's a pretty intricate process. And in fact, I actually did an article on this to really distinguish the difference between upcycling and recycling, because when we first started, I didn't even really know. And I learned that only 1% of today's fabrics can actually be recycled into textiles. And that's because the recycling process takes materials and, with mechanics and chemicals, breaks them down and creates an entirely new fabric. And it's a really difficult process. And a lot of today's fabrics are just, made with polyester and different synthetic fabrics that can't be recycled. So recycling is a very extensive process that involves chemicals breaking down fabrics, creating new ones. Upcycling is much more simple, that you can do on your own. You don't need a factory, you don't need all that equipment, because it's simply just taking the fabric as is and reworking it. So maybe that means cutting up a shirt and using that fabric to make a skirt or something like that. So there is no chemical process to upcycling. Even if you're speaking like with furniture or jewelry, you're just breaking down pieces, keeping them as is, and then just putting together something new with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's very nicely put. Um, so, okay, so when you started the business, and you also mentioned moving to the upcycling designs in 2020, which was this pre-pandemic, or was the COVID right there and then? Like, was that must have been a very bold move for you to shift the nature of your business in the middle of a pandemic, or in the year when the world basically paralyzed. So, could you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah. when did we fully transition? Was it like September it was later in 2020, right?
Yeah, pandemic started
In March. Honestly,
a
I
couple
will
months before.
yeah, I will say that we were very, very blessed in the fact that ever since we started our business back in 2016, it was always e-commerce. We never had a brick and mortar, never had a storefront. So we started off online on Instagram, and we didn't even get a website until 2020 when things really started to shift. So we were very lucky in the fact that we were already familiar with the e-commerce space because that was all we knew. And then when 2020 came along and the pandemic hit, that really just emphasized the importance of online shopping and the e-commerce space. And from there, it was already big before, but I would say the pandemic obviously caused it to explode because people couldn't shop in person anymore. And so we kind of had a head start in that sense. And really, once the pandemic happened, it just further solidified our vision of like, yes, this is the right path for us. This is where we need to go. And so we really just buckled down on our online presence. And that's why we decided to start a website, and we started our second Instagram page, Experiments, and we started TikTok. So I would say it definitely changed things for us, but we were super grateful in the fact that we were already sort of prepared without even trying to prepare, if that makes sense.
And with everyone being forced to shop online, I think that really helped our business grow. And that um, at that time,
Mm-hmm.
um, no one was going out and shopping, so I think we saw uh, we just reached a larger audience at that time because everyone was shopping on their phones or online.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't know what it was like in the US. But generally, do you think people had less money to spend on clothes at the time because with the whole world crisis?
Mm.
Did you feel that, or was the shopping still the same? People were still spending as much money on clothes that they might not really wear at the time. I understand that there wasn't much lockdown in the US. I guess the people were. It did open up pretty quickly. It wasn't as bad as Europe.
Yeah, it's hard because our the nature of Yvonne and Mitchel is, high fashion pieces that are made from used materials. And so it takes a certain type of person to wear our clothes anyways. So it's not like you know, a, a, a brand that sells basics where they're constantly just churning out and people are buying stuff. So I would say our business has always kind of had like a slower, steady pace to it. And when the pandemic happened, from personal experience and also observing, it definitely slowed things down, and it had an impact as it did in many areas. But because our pieces are more investment pieces, and you have to be really intentional when you're purchasing with our brand. I don't know. It didn't really change things too much. It wasn't like for some businesses where things came to a halt and we had to rethink our entire strategy. We just kind of had to take it day by day and move at our own pace. And yeah, I would say I don't know. I didn't really notice a big difference.
Yeah, I think our pieces are a lot like pieces of artwork too. And with everyone's growing online presence, when they buy a piece, they want to show it off online, even if they're not wearing it in a group of people or wearing it out.
Mm.
They're buying the piece, taking pictures in it, taking videos and things, and then posting online. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think with companies that are doing like basics and things that you can wear out at any location, just a little bit different from what we do. So
Yeah.
we didn't see that big of a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I think I saw some pieces for up to $400 as well. So those
On our site.
was it like, yeah, for 430 or $450? Am I right?
I don't think
I think
we haven't sold a piece at 400. I want to say our most expensive may be like 275. I don't know if we've reached 300, but it's still a big chunk of money that you have to be intentional about, and it's not, just an everyday purchase, at least for us, and I feel like most people, especially during that time. So they're definitely, because they're high fashion pieces that take a lot of time and a lot of work, they have the higher end prices. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Coming to the challenges, when you were first starting your business, I think you did it straight out of uni. What were some of the challenges that you faced, and what, like, starting a business is a scary move. It is very scary, especially after, I believe, you had loans and stuff. So coming out of college, starting a business instead of a steady job, what kind of challenges did you face, and how long did it take for you to make the business profitable?
Mm. So I would say, from a business operations standpoint, the most challenging part has been the finances and taxes. I would say taxes still to this day is the hardest for us. But whenever we started the business, we didn't have like an investor. Like we just started it with the money we had in our own pocket, which wasn't a lot. But because we were reselling vintage, it didn't require much of a buy-in, and that's why we didn't have a website for the first few years. Also, was because we couldn't afford to have a website, so we just did it through Instagram, and it was profitable early on from the start, but it wasn't really big profits. And our intention with starting it wasn't necessarily, we're going to grow this into a huge clothing brand. It was just like, we're paying for ourselves to go to college, and we need money to like buy food and to help pay for school. So we just really were thinking short term of like, this is something that inspires us creatively and makes us happy, and we also can potentially pay for what we need in college, so let's do it. And that was just really our mindset for the first 2-3 years while we were doing it in school. And the turning point really came whenever we graduated, because that was a point for us of like, are we going to take this seriously and choose to make this into a career post college, or was this really just a side hustle for us? And that was the scariest part. Um, and the biggest challenge that I think we still face today in different ways is believing in yourself, which is just, you know, it's really hard, especially when you own your own business, and especially when it's your own art, but you also have to make money off of it. That's a weird challenge as well, because you just want to create for the sake of creating because your heart wants to make this and it makes you happy. But then you also have to think of it from a business standpoint of like, I have to pay to live and buy groceries and pay my rent. So it's a really challenging relationship that I think we're still working through today. And that's the biggest challenge aside from taxes, is just simply believing in yourself. And that was a big jump for us to do that and make that decision and try to turn it into a career post college. And I'm really proud of us for doing that. But that battle of staying consistent and saying, I can do this, it's ongoing, I think, and probably always will be, because I feel like that's just life.
Yeah, and doing this as a couple has been challenging, but has also been just as much rewarding.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a question that we get a lot: is how are you guys doing this as a couple, and how can you separate the relationship from the business? And I think we've done a really good job of that.
Yeah.
And it's brought on a lot of challenges, but it's also brought on a lot of success for us.
Yeah. And teamwork, the saying teamwork makes the dream work is a cliche, but a cliche for a reason, because it's so true. And it's kind of funny because, when Jared's having a down day, I'm being really positive and I'm able to help him get through it, and vice versa. And so like, we're there for each other whenever we're feeling down or like, discouraged. And that is really what gets us through.
Yeah, I think the relationship brings a very interesting dynamic to the whole business aspect as well, because it's difficult as it is, but then adding this to the mix makes it like a tenfold difficult.
Yeah.
Um, so what was your audience like? Like, who were you targeting when you initially started, and then later on?
Our audience,
Yeah.
our target audience. Our target audience when we started, and still kind of to this day, was what, 18 to 35. 20-year-old like
Yeah.
women.
Yeah, I would say because we started it in college, it was the people that we were going to school with, really. We still to this day haven't paid for any paid marketing. So, despite that, our business still grew really fast, especially at first, because it was simply just word of mouth. We went to the University of Missouri, Mizzou, which is an amazing school, and it's a really big school, but the campus is pretty confined. So it's a really saturated area with all different kinds of people from all over the world. And so when we or our friends or our customers would be wearing our stuff, you're walking to class and people are like, "Hey, I like that," or you're going out and you get compliments, and that the power of word of mouth, that was something I really didn't expect, but being there on that campus showed us. And so I would say through that, because of the basic age range that was on our campus of 18 to maybe 35, that started out without us even really intentionally making it our target audience. That's what it became. And I think it still kind of is that. Personally, I just feel like it's anyone who has a great appreciation for art and helping the environment and likes to take risks with their clothing, or maybe fashion is like their favorite form of self-expression. Because again, our pieces are statement pieces, and you have to be intentional with what you're buying because it is out there, but also can be expensive. So I think just anyone who's willing to have fun with fashion and likes to express themselves that way, I like to say is our target audience.
Okay, that's very interesting that you haven't had any paid marketing so far.
I know.
Um, s- that's amazing because I think you have a lot of followers on Instagram, at least like around 7,000, 8,000 followers.
Yeah.
So that's incredible.
Yeah, it's
So do you have any marketing strategy as such? Like, do you have any plan of how you're going to market your clothing, or it just happens?
it's really for us the power of social media, especially because we started there. Our website has helped a lot too in terms of like, driving organic traffic from people looking on Google. But I would say TikTok has proven to be the biggest driver. We started a page back in 2020, as I mentioned earlier, but we didn't really start focusing on it until earlier this year in January. I actually did sort of like a test strategy where for 30 days I posted a video every single day on our page, and I used certain hashtags that had to do with upcycling, but that weren't really being used as much, so that we could try to sort of create a strong presence within that hashtag. For example, it was like upcycled clothing brand and upcycled fashion brand didn't have any videos at the time. So I was like, okay, we could use those. And I was posting a video every single day with those specific hashtags. And within those 30 days, we grew from, I think, 6,000 followers to 30,000. And our sales skyrocketed, and those followers translated onto our Instagram platforms. And so social media has just been the best avenue for us. I would love to incorporate paid eventually one day, but where we're at financially, it just makes the most sense to make use of what we have. Social media is free. So until we get a budget that can afford paid marketing, I think we're happy just focusing on, you know, driving an organic reach through our social media platforms, because we have three and they seem to be helping us out pretty well. So that's pretty good.
And just to clarify to the listeners that you guys, it's just you guys running this business, right? Like, you don't have a big team doing any of this, like different aspects. You're the photographer, you're the model, you sew it, design, everything is done by the two of
Yep,
you.
yep. So he makes all the clothes. He's the designer, and he takes all the photos
On an iPhone.
on an iPhone. And I went to school for strategic communications, which is just a fancy word for digital marketing. And so that's one of my biggest passions, what I love. So I focus on that for Yvonne and Mitchel and like the business side of things. I built our website. I maintain our website. I do all of our content creation, so like videos and posting on our Instagrams and stuff like that. And I actually work part-time for a content marketing agency, digital marketing agency they're amazing. And so everything that I do for them applies directly to Yvonne and Mitchel. You know, for clients, we provide SEO and lead generation services and thought leadership and, you know, building a presence through guest contributing and like Forbes and different stuff like that. So everything I've learned through that job helps me with Yvonne and Mitchel and the marketing strategies that we do there. I learned so much. So that has helped a lot too in terms of what I can apply to Yvonne and Mitchel's marketing without having to get involved with paid quite yet.
I was just going to say, I went to school for health sciences, and my mother taught me the very basics of sewing early on in high school. And when we first started the business, I was sewing here and there. And as the need for unique one-of-one pieces started to kind of rise in our customer base, is when I really started to kind of hone in on my sewing skills. But I don't have any training in sewing. I don't have the technical skills that a lot of people do in this industry. Um, yeah, we've been really blessed. And right now, I also work part time. I just work 2 days out of the week at what's called a creative reuse center, and it's a donation based company that people in the community can donate any like craft supplies. Um, so we get a lot of the things that we use for Yvonne and Mitchel, such as like old fabrics, thread, even things like fabric scissors, some different hardware that I use on pieces from Scraps KC.
Mm-hmm.
And both of our part-time jobs help us a lot with our business, and maybe one day we'll be able to focus just on Yvonne and Mitchel, but for right now I think we're in a good place, and we both enjoy our part-time jobs.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that brings me to that gives a very nice segue to the next question. Next two questions, actually. Firstly, could you tell us a little bit more about the process of designing clothes and sewing and how difficult it is and how long does it take for you to come up with new designs? Because every piece is more or less unique and totally different. I did see the videos that you made. I was incredible and I tried doing a few, but I don't know how to sew yet. So I didn't even bother much doing it going further, but that seemed simple enough and by looking at it. But I don't know how difficult it is to actually get it done and then sell it, like make money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
So could you tell me about your experience of doing that and how long does it take? Because unless and until you make keep making products, you can't sell them. So you can't procrastinate either.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, my process is a lot different from a lot of designers, I think, and I think upcycling is one of the big reasons that makes my process different. I'll break down a piece of clothing and I'll use the lines and things that are already on a shirt or a pair of pants and just kind of use my creativity to come up with something. I never have a real set idea before a project. I just kind of let the project happen as ideas come to me. Like I said, I don't have all of the technical skills that a lot of seamstress or sewers do. Um, so my creativity is kind of what makes the products like special and unique, and I like to let the process kind of take me where it wants to go instead of me sketching out an idea and coming up with different plans for days. Like I'll make 2 or 3 pieces a day on some days, and it just kind of depends on how much energy I have, and um, I don't know. There's I'll just kind of keep working on a project. If I run into mistakes, I'll find different ways to fix those mistakes. And usually the solutions to those mistakes make the piece something that I wouldn't have even like thought of or dreamed of. And I think that's kind of what makes these pieces special.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, for a single project, it doesn't take me too long, 2 or 3 hours of real steady focus. There's not too many projects I do that go on for days or weeks, because creating clothes for me is just um,
Flow.
yeah. It's just I like to kind of find myself in a flow state, and I just kind of let the things take me where they want to go.
Yeah.
And selling them has been a big struggle. and just like putting a price on these things, because they're these ideas are coming as I'm going, and they're really a piece of like who I am, and putting a price on that can be really hard. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say in terms of process of like typically what it looks like is we'll source clothing, fabric, materials from either local thrift stores, the creative recycling center, even yard sales and estate sales. We look everywhere. And once we have those materials, we bring them home, wash them, prepare them, iron, and then Jared will just start cutting up and start sewing. He doesn't sketch, doesn't use patterns. It's because every piece is so individual, and like he said, he likes to use the lines that are on there. He'll just start cutting and sewing and sort of experimenting, which is the inspiration of our second page, experiments, how it came to be, because that's really what his process is completely experimental.
And I would say, with you just now kind of getting into sewing and learning how to sew, a couple of people have asked me, like, what are the essentials that you need to really start sewing? And I always tell people a fairly heavy duty sewing machine, especially when upcycling, you're sewing through many layers of things. And I like to use like a lot of denim and stuff. So a heavy duty sewing machine, a great pair of scissors, a large table, and a mannequin that you can pin to. And honestly, I think a lot of my process changed once we got a mannequin, because I could really make things that form to the body. Um, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's really good advice because I think these are people might think that it's very complicated and you need a lot of material to actually make something. But these are the basic four things that you've pointed listed out that people can have at home and start practicing.
Hmm.
So that's actually good advice for me as well because I want to learn sewing.
Yeah, and I
Y-
think when we were first kind of starting out, I was just using things out of my closet and trying new things. And so, and like we mentioned earlier, we didn't really have much capital when we started the business, maybe like a couple $100 or something. And like you can use what you have around you to really build a business. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we are a good example of that, and what we continue to hope to be.
Has it ever happened that you didn't find something that you would like to use? Like, what if you went for to a thrift store and you didn't find something that you would want to use or you could use? Like, you would have rather have found something else, but you didn't, and then you don't have anything.
Yeah, I personally go to about 3 to 4 thrift stores like a week, maybe a couple times a week. Caylin doesn't really have as much free time as I do, because she works a couple more days than I do throughout the week. But there are times that I go to stores and I don't find anything. But there's times I go to the stores and find a bunch of things, and we have
Mm-hmm.
a room full of things that I should use. But a lot of the times I go out and want to find new things. Um,
I think it.
but I think honestly, if you put me anywhere where there's some clothes, I could find something that I could do use somehow. And if not, I'll bring it home and set it aside
Mm-hmm.
and use it later.
Yeah, we have pieces in our workroom that we got. I mean, 4 years ago, 5 years ago when we first started the business. I think it all depends on what sparks the inspiration. So, a piece that's in there could sit there in there for a few years. We hold on to it, and then one day randomly, Jared gets inspired by an idea. Or if nothing in the room at the time, seems like the right piece, then he'll go out and source. So it really all just depends.
Yeah, I think there's been sometimes in our so we live in a 2 bedroom apartment, and our second bedroom is like the sewing room studio, and that's where all of our clothes are. We have a couple racks of them. But there's times where we'll have some old things, and I'll hang a new piece up right next to it, and I like the way the fabrics look together, and that'll spark a whole new idea.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So do you think, keeping in mind the fact that it is a very sustainable business and it is for people who are environmentally conscious, do you think your audience is such that only is buying that because it's so it's not fast fashion and it's not destroying the planet the way fast fashion is, or it's just because they're really nice? Like, do you think that's what's the percentage, or can you tell the ratio of the difference of people who are doing it for one reason and for the other?
Yeah. I think I think they go so hand in hand. Um, I think that, you know, all of our clothes are made entirely out of used fabrics. And even like the packaging that we ship in is like 99% used. Like Jared mentioned earlier, Scraps KC, we're able to get tape from there, tissue paper, mailers, even a lot of the times. So I feel like every aspect of our business, as much as it can be, we try to make environmentally conscious. And so I think that weighs a lot in the consumer's decision to buy from our brand versus another. But I also think the the perfect blend of making an eco-friendly purchase paired with getting a garment that is truly one of one, that you are the only person in this entire world to have, I think is so unique, especially with fast fashion brands churning out thousands of one style, and with the trends constantly cycling at a much faster pace due to social media mostly. I think that that differentiator of having that one piece no one else in the world has, that you can say is your own, truly a part of you and as unique as you are, I think is just as important as the eco-friendly aspect of it. So I want to say 50-50 because they're both so important and I think really cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think people that see the beauty in nature and see the beauty in trying to make this world a better place also see the beauty in the artwork that we're creating. So I think they kind of tie hand in hand.
Yeah, that's very nicely phrased. And also, I think the way the photographs are taken and the way they're all set up, it's also very, like, I wanted to order some, but I obviously can't because I don't think you ship to Pakistan. But
We actually do.
they were like really. Oh, do you?
Yeah, we do.
Are you on Amazon or just off the website?
Oh, sorry.
Like through Amazon as well, or just through the website?
Just through our website, anyone in the world can buy a piece, and I think we've been able to ship everywhere, right? I think I remember there was one.
Maybe a couple places we can't, but yeah,
Yeah.
we've shipped all over the world. Russia, China. Just shipped a package to Taiwan. I actually work with a small company out of Pakistan that helps me make footwear, and so we send things back and forth to each other. But that's just a little side project of mine. But yeah, we could ship to Pakistan.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So that footwear company, can I just ask if it's in Sialkot or Faisalabad?
Wait,
Without
what was
us
that?
naming any names. Which city is it in?
You
Without
know,
naming any names?
I am not too sure the exact city
Oh yeah,
it's in.
oh yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, I was just curious because I work with these industries, so I was just wondering.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be interesting.
Uh,
it's a very small
so one last question.
footwear
Sorry.
company. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, go ahead. That's a whole different. What was that? Your mic cut out.
Yeah, I just muted. I was like, yeah, go on.
Oh no, I just said that could be another conversation. We can talk about that in an email or something. That's kind of outside of Yvonne and Mitchel, but yeah, I love Pakistan, and those are some great people that I work with there, and really thankful for them.
Oh yeah, that's fascinating to hear. So do you practice sustainability in your own lives? And if so, how?
Mm. Um, I think first and foremost clothing, because it's something that Jared and I have both individually loved our entire lives, and we both individually have shopped secondhand our entire lives. Um, Now in the space that we live in together, I would say 95% of the furniture is secondhand. Um, and Yeah, I would say clothing has always been the biggest just because it's what we love the most and we like experimenting with clothing and expressing ourselves through clothing. And so the best way to do that was buying secondhand so then we could still have fun without contributing to the global waste, textile waste. But also within our own home, like I said, all of our furniture was purchased secondhand. And um, yeah, so it's in essentially every aspect of our lives, but we're also still human at the end of the day, and nobody is perfect. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, we recycle every single thing or like we're these perfect beings because we're not, but we try to implement it into every aspect of our lives as much as we can.
Yeah, but I mean, this jar drinking out of secondhand, this painting behind us, estate sale,
My entire outfit,
this mirror behind her, all my jewelry secondhand.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, we try to incorporate it in just about every part of our life. We honestly just feel like if there's an opportunity to use secondhand, you should,
Mm-hmm.
and we should try to find new ways to use what we already have instead of going out and buying something brand new.
Yeah.
If the possibility is there.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second. So I think there's some internet problems going on, so I'll just quickly wrap this up. I've got two questions, few brief questions.
Okay.
Firstly, have you seen this show on Netflix called Girl Boss?
What is it called?
Girl Boss?
Yes.
It's the same thing.
I saw an episode. I haven't seen the entire show, but a few years back I saw the episode because someone else told me about it. And it was about that person who started reselling vintage on eBay, right? Yes, yes.
So I just got reminded of that show after talking to you because it's one of my favorite shows. So I just realized.
I need to watch it all the way.
Anyway, so it's really good. You should watch it.
Okay, I'll put that
And it's very inspiring. So what's one life skill that you think everybody should have, regardless of their careers? If you could both give one life skill.
life skill. Ooh. Um, Confidence, which is one of the hardest things to gain. I think that there are so many tools that we are given that can help us build confidence, but I truly think that confidence in yourself and believing who you are, that you're worthy, that you're special, um, I think that can get you so far in life because for me, that's what's gotten me here today. You know, I have those moments of self-doubt. That's inevitable. I know that. But, you know, that self-confidence that I have of being able to tell myself, like, you know, you're on the right path and the words you have to say, the stuff you want to do, that's important just as much as anyone else. I think that skill of, you know, finding ways to build up your self-confidence and sustain it to me has been the most important thing because I think that also ties in with self-love and the way that you're able to contribute to the world and love other people and be confident in other people. I think it's all connected. So I would say self-confidence.
I was trying to think of a skill that's maybe a little bit more
Tangible.
but
Yeah.
I don't know. The only thing that kind of popped up in my head is the skill of trying to see the positive in anything that happens in your life and staying faithful to the fact that whatever is going on in your life is happening for a reason. And I think that's something that we try to practice is finding the good in any situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's honestly what's gotten us to where we are.
Yeah. And for something tangible for us, in order to like achieve those two things has been spending time outside, number one, which I think ties back to our love for nature and our passion to like preserve it and help it is being outside, out in the world, or even just like alone in nature in really peaceful settings. We live in a pretty remote area in our country, and you know, our surrounding and our environment has really supported us in so many ways. And so maybe like the life skill of just being able to spend time outside and peace and quiet so that you can like be alone with yourself and your thoughts and not distracted by a bunch of things. Maybe that is something more tangible.
So optimism, confidence, and being out in the nature,
Yes.
the perfect blend
Yes.
of these things. So, what advice would you give to someone who is starting up an upcycling business, who wants to start an upcycling business, especially to couples and individuals?
Yeah, I think we've gotten asked this quite a few times, and I think one of our main answers is to just start, even if you don't really have any real plans. If you have the energy to do it, just start it. And don't think too far ahead into it. 'Cause when we started, we didn't know what we were doing, but we just started and we just kept going. And when hard times and different struggling when we were struggling with different situations came about, we just kept going and kept going. Um, so if you're looking to start any kind of business, it is to just start it, stop thinking about it, and just take the first step, and let that step guide you to the next step, and keep going.
Yeah. And I would say for upcycling specifically, you know, especially with the major increase in clothing consumption that's happened over the years, maybe like the last decade, there's more than enough clothing and used materials out there to use for your upcycling business, and it doesn't require a lot of buy-in. As long as you have, depending, thrift stores they range depending on where you're at. But a lot of them sell stuff for really fair prices. And so you don't need a lot of money in order to get started, especially if you push yourself to try to get as many used materials as possible. Like we mentioned earlier, not only the clothing, but the hardware we use on the clothing. We can find thread and safety pins and tape and different stuff that's resold at these thrift stores and these recycling centers. Scraps KC, the recycling center that we mentioned that Jared works at, we didn't know about them until, was it last year? I think last year, 2020, March of 2021, when we did a collaboration with them. And through them, we learned that these types of creative reuse centers exist all over the country. And so, if maybe just making more of an effort to try to push yourself and challenge yourself to upcycle as many different types of materials and products as possible, maybe, because it might seem hard on the surface of like, where do you get all this stuff, but really if you just go to the store, or if you look up online local creative reuse recycling centers, they're all available. And there's a lot of things at your disposal that you could buy and incorporate into your upcycling business.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think to just start and then get on with it.
Starting.
Thank you so much. I Caitlin
Yes.
and Jared, is that right?
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just really bad at
No,
this.
it's okay.
But thank you so much for taking out the time to do this. I am very excited to order from your website and to actually have one of a kind piece
Yeah.
for myself. I hope the listeners and especially definitely did learn a lot about upcycling business and how one can have the confidence to just take the leap and do it
Yeah.
and have faith, basically.
Yeah.
Um, you gave some really good advice. And yeah, I best of luck. I wish you all the best,
Thank
and I hope that you expand even further. It's amazing. I think the best thing, or this something that surprised me the most, is that you do not have a marketing strategy and you do not pay anyone for this. So that's a really big success that you've managed to do. All you did with just two people, who sews and photography, everything is covered by just you two.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's just hopefully showing people that it's going to be hard at times, definitely, but you really can do it. It's possible. Even if it's not perfect, it's possible to build and grow something that's successful as long as like you're passionate about it
And consistent.
yeah, consistency. Yeah. But thank you so much for having us on. These conversations are so important. Speaking to other people within the industry and like learning from each other and growing with each other is something that we really value. So thank you for having this conversation with us and inviting us on.
Thank you so much.